I feel like when I got your email, it was so lovely just to get that invitation for a podcast. And for a while, I was just not taking it. I just wasn't in the headspace. And I was like, you know what? It'd be nice to do it. Maybe it'll get me re-excited about what I do myself, because I feel so disconnected from the work that I do at the moment.
I noticed that you definitely took some time off, because I've been following you now for, I think, almost 2 years, just because your work speaks so much to me. Not to be dramatic, but I think when I first saw like your page, like when I stumbled upon it, I was going through a pretty difficult time in my life. And I guess I was struggling with trying to figure out what my emotions were. And like, because I had a lot of contradictions, you know, like I'm happy in certain moments, but I'm also confused and hurt. So I was like, am I normal? And just stumbling upon your page and the way you articulate all of the different types of emotions through imagery and words, it just really spoke to me. And I like kind of teared up a little bit. So I've been such a huge fan, because I don't know if you get this a lot. I'm sure you do, but I think your work makes me feel seen. And I feel it makes a lot of other people feel seen. So like, your art has such a profound impact on people's lives. At least it does in my life. So I just want to thank you for the work that you do. It really means a lot. So I'm excited again to be speaking with you.
Thank you so much, Jummie. That was like a big hug in my heart. It's amazing how easily we can forget the work that we do ourselves and the contribution we make. So thank you for that reminder. I think I needed that.
Of course. Okay. So I just want to, we can jump right in. Again, thank you for coming on the show today. And I just really want to know, more about who Rukmini is, right? Like, we see the amazing work that you do, and it's easy to just like have this notion in your head that, you know, you had everything figured out, like everything was meticulously planned. So who are you, and how did you get the idea for the 100-Day Project?
Beautiful question. Well, thank you for setting us up with that. And I guess I can start by saying Rukmini is a girl who is trying and stumbling and trying to find her voice and trying to figure out her emotions. And in that process, thousands of people have come and joined me, and I'm super grateful for that. And I also often forget kind of what I've built and the impact it makes. And I guess this question is really great because it helps me reflect on what brought me to this moment. And for sure, I mean, so many things I can get into, but I love to say that what brought me into this moment is curiosity and the willingness to try new things. I'll give a little bit of background on just myself. I am an Indian American, South Asian, born in the US. My family migrated from India, and I was raised in Gainesville, Florida. And I've always had an inclination for the arts and creativity. And I like to say, thank God my parents were okay with me not becoming an engineer or doctor this time around. I think that's a joke for any children of immigrants listening to this. But since I was quite young, I had this strong desire that graphic design and digital arts. And I just was very clear. I have never been more clear in my life that I wanting to be a graphic designer, which was very interesting. But that again was just the first step for me getting to where I am now. So I did go to college and I got a degree in graphic design. And so that really did put me in the world of creativity. But doing what I'm doing now is such like a sharp turn from that. I didn't go and get a job as a designer, work in a firm. I actually took a gap year after college, and I wanted to travel, and I wanted to do community service projects, and I wanted to just explore my voice a little bit. It just felt too premature to jump into a job. And also, real talk, I was kind of afraid of a job, and I wanted to just cruise and travel. And I think that having that life experience for a year allowed me to just feel emotions. It allowed me to just experience life. And I remember I was traveling. This was 2016, right out of college. I was traveling in Australia, and I was meeting cool people, and it was really exciting. But I distinctly remember this moment where I was like, what brought me here? What is happening? And I had this feeling of like, I feel this weird kind of like future nostalgia. I had no idea what that even felt. It was just this weird, obscure emotion. And I still remember jotting that word in my notebook back then. And during that time, right after college, I had started this thing called the 100-Day Project. And I like to bring everything I do back to this project called the 100-Day Project because I really believe in it. It is so simple. A lot of people ask me, what is it? What does it mean? How do I start? And I say, literally, the title, like 100-Day Project, is all you need to know. You can make up all the nuances of the project later. You choose something you want to do for 100 days. It can be 100 consecutive days. You can do that 100-day project in 5 years. Like, it really doesn't matter. It's the whole point is that it's your initiative, that you take time out of the shoulds and have tos, and you just find something that you're curious about. Not even that you're passionate about, because that's a lot of pressure. And of course, in this culture, we try to monetize things, and I want to do something that I can sell later and I can be insta famous. But my word of advice is just do something you're curious in and just make it so easy that you can be consistent with it. And so that's what I did. I graduated, I think it was actually 2015 summer, and I had done a lot of graphic arts and work in Adobe and just, you know, the typical graphic design type of work. And I just felt a little bit like I wanted to just get my hands dirty and use watercolor and pastels. And that's what I did that first year. I mean, I had just a couple hundred followers on Instagram. A few friends followed me, but I did it for myself, and I would do these abstract drawings. And it was quite amazing because I am not a consistent person. That is myth number one about Rukmini, that when people see me, they're like, wow, you've done 700-day projects. You must be super disciplined. And no, that's why I did it. I've never done anything more than like 20 days in my life in a row. But somehow this project, I think because of the flexibility and the ease, and there was no pressure, it was just random drawings in a sketchbook. That discipline just shifted. It was like a paradigm shift for creativity, a sense that I don't just have to wait for I have to be creative in order to make something, that I can just sit down every day for 10 minutes and be disciplined. And that's my relationship with creativity. It's not creativity as this mythical, amazing thing that comes and goes. It's half an hour every morning out my desk. It's putting my butt in the chair and working. Like, that discipline that goes into creativity is so underrated. And just to put it in a nutshell, that's what the 100-Day Project is bringing that discipline to your curiosity. And there's more I can say on it, but that was the birth of that 100-Day Project. And I can get into the various projects I've done. But 2015, I did the project, just putting, doodles on my sketchbook. And then 2016, when I was traveling, then I coined the phrase obscure emotion, because that year I said, okay, I want to do this again, but let me make it more personal. And I just started drawing emotions, honestly, to just understand my own better. It was never for any kind of result or this will be trending. Or I mean, that didn't even really exist 5-6 years ago. So that's a little bit of the origin story of how it all started.
Wow, you said so many like amazing things. I think one of the things that jumped out at me is like following your curiosity and this pressure for people to do things that they can monetize, but that was not the case for you. I mean, if somebody goes on your page, they can see how, or interpret that you are successful in the work that you're doing because you have, all those followers and, a lot of people comment and a lot of people resonate with it, but that was not your intention. Was to first understand you as a person and your emotions. So that isn't, I absolutely love that. So it was just you following your curiosity. So how did you transition from drawing your feelings and your emotions to drawing other people's feelings and emotions?
Yeah, great question. So 2016 was a big one for me in that project. I feel like that's when I hit on something that I wanted to keep exploring. And I did these obscure emotions, and I like to tell people that I made them super simple just for the ease and convenience. So that's another tip. If you're going to do the 100-Day Project, make it in a way that you can make it portable. So literally I had a sketchbook that fit into my purse, and a watercolor set I bought on Amazon that fits into my purse also. And I would be like on the subway in New York, and I would be sketching something, and I'd be at a parking lot, I'd be in my car. And so I created this project, and I was drawing my own emotions every day. And that project itself was just really eye-opening, because when you do anything for 100 days, it sort of changes you. You start somewhere and you think you'll do something in 100 days, but where you get is very different. And so I didn't think I was actually going to do 100 days. In my head, I was like, yay, 100-day project, but really I'll get to 40 and I'll just quit. Right. Like sometimes we don't think we'll actually get there. But what was amazing is that I would have people comment, and they would be like friends or colleagues or just people that followed me, you know, acquaintances that you went to school with 10 years ago, but you don't know they still follow you. They would be commenting, and they would say things like, I have always felt this way and I never had words for it. Just very genuine. And it gave me a lot of realizations that I want to continue this, because I'm having some kind of dialogue with people in a real authentic way that usually social media doesn't allow. So that was the first step, that there's some kind of dialogue happening, and it's happening because I'm coming from a place of honesty. And that, again, as an artist, I loved, because when we just create art for what will people like, you can tell the substance isn't there. But if you're just saying like, this is me being honest, then honesty is always attractive. And that was just one big lesson I learned. And so that was like the beginning that I saw that there could be some degree of drawing other people's emotions. And really quickly, I'll say, towards the end of that year, again, my personal life is always kind of enmeshed in the work that I do. And I remember I was going through a breakup, one of my first, and it was hard. And I remember just feeling like, I don't want to draw these emotions. They're like very depressing. Let me draw someone else's. So it started off as like a distraction that it's better to just draw someone else's feelings. But again, I just posted on my personal Facebook and I said, hey, send me an emotion and I'll draw it. And oh my God, Jummie, it was just so lovely. This is when I realized that as an artist, I think when you come into a sense of what's my values, then you can really light up as an artist. And some people are saying, what's my style? And what am I supposed to do and contribute? And it's like, what are your values? And I realized a big value for me is connection and community. So when I was just drawing my own stuff, that was fun. But when someone would like literally like bare their heart to me and be like, this person in my family died, or like I'm going through a breakup, or I feel so in love but I'm really insecure, like that I'm too happy, like it's kind of vulnerable. What if something like just amazing emotions. I just felt so like I was given a big responsibility and also a big sense of, what's the word, like a privilege that people are sharing this with me and I get to draw it. This project is very dear to me, and I haven't really done it since, but in 2017 I was doing a lot of these and they were simple, like watercolor red images. But it was just an amazing, and again, this is where this idea of dialoguing, that it doesn't have to be face to face. And again, as artists, as writers, as podcasters, I mean, you're in conversation with people, even if they're hearing like 2 years later. So that's a big, that was also a game changer for me. That's when I realized, okay, there's something here that's really powerful, and there's something I love so much, and that's working with people. And I mean, that can go also to later on in our conversation of how I came to do workshops, because I just realized this kind of interface with people was really lighting me up. It was really giving me a lot of life.
Oh man, I just honestly, I can't stress enough that you really are like a breath of fresh air, not to like, you know, talk down on other creatives on Instagram and, you know, the social media space. But, you know, a lot of times people are forced or feel like they have to do performative things. And it's like, how do I create things that people love versus this is what is coming from my heart? And this is speaking through me and I have to share this. And in doing so and being your authentic self, you were able to connect with people and people felt seen. Like, I cannot stress enough that when I stumbled upon your page, I was like, I have never seen something like this that describes emotions or puts words to emotions that I could not voice, or I didn't even have the language for, or the imagery for. And the imagery is also like what blows my mind, right? Because I don't know how you come up with it. I mean, obviously that is your creative gift, but just the way you draw or explain things like grief or feeling caged in, and not being able to express the person that you are, or having multiple emotions, or holding space for multiple different types of emotions, is just so profound. So thank you for being yourself, and thank you for being so authentic and sharing that with the world, because in doing so, you are able to kind of connect with people, create a community, and have people be seen. And there's one, you have a lot of amazing art, but there's one that really, really touched my heart. And it's the phases of the heart.
Oh, that's one of my
Imagery that
favorites
you
too.
draw, like that you drew, I should say. And I just saw that and I was like, oh my God, like, you know, I'll let you explain it, right? Because I don't, I want to make sure you do, I want to make sure you do it justice. But can you talk about the phases of the heart, right? Can you just kind of describe the imagery a little bit and how you came up with the idea to draw that?
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. And thank you for the encouragement. It's, yeah, this artwork in particular, I distinctly remember when it came to me. It's hard to talk about my work in some ways individually, because when I think about it, they're all very connected. Like sometimes years are connected. I think I drew that one in 2019. And so that artwork reminds me of the one I did a few weeks earlier and the day after, and they're all similar. And again, they're sort of based on what I was feeling at the time too, which I think I was in a relationship that was kind of like ambiguous, like where is this going and why am every day, like one day I'm really happy and one day I'm really sad. And I think how did it happen? I used to carry a small sketchbook with me. So again, this is another tip of mine that I should follow again, is that just carry a sketchbook everywhere and just doodle little things that came to me. But I remember just thinking of this idea of the phases of the moon and just thinking like, I love the idea that the moon has multiple phases. And somehow I think I just connected that with the heart. And when it came to me, it really clicked, like phases of the heart. It is not white and black. And I think I was drawing I had a few different pictures on like the many parts in the heart and the different shapes of the heart and different kinds of heartbreak. And that's why I said there's many kinds of similar artwork that I sort of see them all connected almost as a series. But this one in particular, and for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's basically like 8 little hearts and you'll see like a heart, a fully formed heart, and it's slowly like crumbling and then it's growing again into a big heart, sort of like the moon. You have a full moon and it wanes into a new moon and back again to a full moon. And it just made so much sense to me that our heart is of course in phases. There's not just, especially for me, it really resonated because I used to think of heartbreak and in love as these two binaries, that you're either fully in love or just happy and your heart is full of joy, or you're like broken and your heart is breaking. And these are the two, like, think of icons and emojis. We see these, but the heart is so much more complex than that. And especially in my work of drawing emotions and tapping into my own heart, I just felt that I want to draw an image that really shows the nuance of what we feel. So that's what the image is. It shows, and if anyone wants to check it out, like every little heart is kind of saying something. One is like, yay, I'm joyful. One is like, oh my God, I'm confused about life. And it just reminded me that we should make room for all the feelings of the heart, all the little joys and all the little heartbreaks. Like sometimes our heart is breaking constantly in little ways, and that's okay too. And sometimes we're feeling joy even when we're hurting. And so these nuances of how we feel is super important for me to acknowledge. And I also feel like this is like a mission of my art, to share this with others, that you are allowed to feel multiple things at once. You are allowed to feel opposite emotions, and all emotions are valid and all of them should be accepted. And so especially in creating artwork that validates and mirrors that for a person, I feel like that is a service that I want my art to do, because like you said, that you felt seen. For me, that's just the goal of my work, is that I want to be a mirror. I want the Rukmini really to like disappear from the art, and I want the art to really be a mirror for someone else. And if that's happening, then for me, that's just the greatest gift, really.
Right, right. And it 100% is. And one of the reasons why I love that image so much is um the heart starts out whole and ends
Mm-hmm.
whole by the end of the
Yeah,
phase. And I just thought
exactly.
like, well, duh, because when we think of, like you said, like you kind of think of like heartache and like a full heart and like it's either this or that, like binary ways of looking
Mm-hmm.
at it. But I'm like, yeah, like it does come back full circle. Your heart will be whole again through the pain and the difficulties, and it's not going to be easy, but there's
Mm-hmm.
hope that it will be whole again. And I just thought that was like so profound. I mean, I think we hear people talk about that, but just to see the imagery of it was like a light bulb that went off in my head, and it was also super comforting. So
Mm.
when you have an idea for drawing an emotion or somebody comes to you about something, do you like, what's your creative process? Do you meditate on it? Do you get the image right away and like, yeah, this is how exactly I should draw it? Do you have a couple of iterations of an emotion
Mm.
that you're trying to draw?
Yeah, it's a good question. I like to say the process is different actually for different phases
Mm-hmm.
of my life. No pun intended. But oops. Right. So my creative process really looks different in different phases of my own life. That's
Mm-hmm.
what I've learned. It's been about
Yeah.
6, 7 years now of doing this 100-day project and slowly growing this body of work. And there's been some times in my life where I'm very prolific and I love that and I feel so connected. And then sometimes in my life where it's like a desert. And
Yeah.
sometimes where life is just busy. Like really, I was saying earlier, but the last year has been super busy for me. And just a lot of personal changes in my family and moving and my relationships. And so I just have to find my own rhythm in all of that and kind of give myself grace that there's going to be some times where I'm not posting so much and sometimes where I feel like, wow, who was that Rukmini in 2017 making all that art? Because I don't know how to do that again. And
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
probably other creatives and artists can relate that sometimes you feel like you're on fire and sometimes you're just looking at your past self and your past work and you're like, I don't know how to do that anymore. Even
Yeah.
when you shared about some of the work I did in 2019, I'm thinking like, can I still do that? Do I have it in me? And there is one constant though that I've learned about the creative process, and that is called the work.
Mm.
So there, if anyone is familiar with Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic, she talks
Mm.
about creativity in an amazing way. There's also another book called The War of Art by David
Mm.
Pressfield, I think. I mean, these are amazing books, especially The War of Art. It taught me so much again about this theme of discipline and this
Mm.
idea that my process, okay, life will always be busy and things will happen, but I made a commitment to myself a few years ago that no matter what, as best as I can, I'm going to do at least 100-day project a year.
Mm.
And it might take me months and months to do this 100-day project. I've had, I think even a year ago, it took me almost a year to do a 100-day project.
Mm.
And I was like crawling through it. I was like, why am I doing this? And that's part of the process also is
Mm-hmm.
not always just like being able to have that lovely time of connection and meditation. Sometimes it
Yeah.
feels like that. And sometimes I feel so far from that. I'm just like
Mm-hmm.
scrambling at the middle of the night to do something. And so, yeah, my process right now is I had a busy year and I managed to do like 30 drawings for my 100-day project. And I'm thinking of restarting it again and just squeezing in the
Mm.
rest this year. And again, how I come up with ideas is sometimes different. A few years ago, I would always carry the same sketchbook. I had this beautiful square sketchbook and it would fit
Mm.
in my backpack. And anytime an idea would come, I would just scribble it. And from there, an idea would come, it would look different. Sometimes um, journaling is a big part actually of my process.
Mm.
Tend to journal every day, and that's been a really good process for me. So when I don't know what to draw, I look at the words. And so my words and
Mm.
images are very connected. And again, if someone sees my work, words are really a big part of it. And even the
Mm-hmm.
descriptions I write and things like that. So that's another one is words. And lately I've been using an iPad more than even traditional art, for better or for worse,
Mm.
but that has been helping. And so more than anything, any takeaway I would give to an artist is that my process can shift, but what's constant is the need to just sit down and do the work, which I really wish there was an easier way to say it.
Yeah.
It's there's something called the resistance, which is every sort of distraction we can do. It's like, you know, get a lovely invitation to be on a podcast. Yes, if that means I don't have to draw today. So really being an artist and a creative, it's in some ways it's romanticized. Like, yes, I get to create art. 90% of the time, it's like, oh my God, I would rather be doing anything else, which sounds crazy when it's like your passion, but your passion doesn't mean you're always in love with it. Like you have to work for your passion. And so this is me preaching to myself right now, because again, I go through phases where I'm good and I'm not. And I'm just realizing over the years that it is just work. It's like any other work. It's like being a plumber. It's like being a school teacher. Like if I romanticize it too much, I'll never get it done. So at some point I just have to sit down and be like, this is my job. And let me tell you, it's really hard to do that.
Yeah. I mean, speaking of just like the process and everything, there's something that you have on your website about like the 10 things you learned from the 100-day project. And I read that, you know, being a creative myself, and I'm like, oh my God, somebody had to say it. Someone had to say it. So some of the things you said that you've learned as an artist, right? I'm going to list some of them.
Please.
One of them, you said, being unsure of yourself and still making meaningful work, sharing incomplete, imperfect work. That was the one that I was like, oh my God. And believing in quantity over quality. That was also an eye-opening one. So I just feel like in a world where we're taught the opposite, right? Could you shed some light on your perspective and why these have been important discoveries for you in terms of creating art? I mean, you already started doing that, but really, again, speaking to the, like, for example, quantity over quality and sharing imperfect work.
Yes. Oh, thank you for asking these questions. I can talk about it forever because they're so important. And and I need to hear them the most. I really need to follow them. Like I said, I had these realizations when I did my first 100-day project, but I have to literally practice remembering them because the whole world is teaching us the opposite. And not even the whole world, our culture, you know, social media. I mean, even like our capitalistic culture is based on being perfect, and it's based on, you know, spending a lot of time and getting things a certain way. And so that's why the 100-day project is so radical, because you're learning to be okay being imperfect, because you can't do 100 perfect drawings. That is just the truth. But you will not do 100 terrible drawings. Like you will do something amazing, even if it's 10, and then 20 will be okay. Or, you know, and then 30 will be kind of crappy. You know, that's how it works. And so this quantity over quality is just so radical, because it's the best thing to get us out of a perfectionistic mindset. And perfectionism is purely fear. It is just, there's a beautiful quote. It goes, perfectionism is fear in high heels, or something like that. It's like a really posh looking, I love that. Beautiful, yeah, right. Yeah, but it's just fear. It's like we're trying to make our fear look really dressed up, but it's fear. It's fear of being vulnerable. It's fear of putting ourselves out there in a way that's a little bit not ideal. And so again, on social media and the culture, and we see like everything we see is through the lens of competition. Unfortunately, because we see things in the comparison that she looks so beautiful, I want to look beautiful. His art is so good, I want to be good. And so when we're constantly focused on comparing to others, we're not just checking in with what we want to create. And again, that authenticity is lost. And so quantity over quality is such a good one, because again, we always hear the opposite, and quality is important in certain things, but quantity over quality for me is all about being prolific. And being prolific literally means doing. Just grabbing a sheet of paper and just doing. And anyone can do. Like, you don't need to be a genius to create quantity. You just have to be a hard worker. And when people keep saying quality over quantity, and your reels have to be perfect and your art has to be perfect and everything, it paralyzes someone to even begin. And it creates this idea that you have to be a certain kind of genius, a certain status, a certain socioeconomic status even. But when you say quantity, it's like any person in the whole world can just grab some Crayola markers. And if you do like 1,000 Crayola marker drawings every day, you will get noticed, because 1,000 is a freaking big number. So that was another realization that is super important to me, that you will be known as what you do consistently. I was not like an emotion drawing girl. Like I've never really taken psychology classes. I didn't major in this. I didn't study this. I didn't plan it. But literally because I did 100 drawings on emotions, people started calling me the girl who draws emotions. And I just realized, wow, we are defined by what we do consistently. It's not about how good we are. But if you suddenly open someone's Facebook or Instagram and you see 100, 500 drawings of rainbows, that person will be known as that. And so that is just amazing that we have that ability to define ourselves by what we do, and now how we do it always. Doesn't have to be amazing, doesn't have to be Picasso. You know, some people will think that they need to spend years making one perfect masterpiece, but you get there by doing like 100 terrible ones. And so again, this quantity is just a way to get us out of this paralyzing perfectionism, and it's a way for us to just embrace this mentality of hard work and discipline.
Oh my God. Yeah. Like literally, I'm eating up all of the words that you've just been laying out. And also with what you said, like learning to be okay with putting out stuff that's imperfect, because like you're absolutely right. I mean, everything looks so perfect. Like you go on people's pages and you're just like, wow, like their color scheme. And I found myself doing that the other day. I literally was looking at other podcast pages and I was like, wow, like they have like such great like color schemes, and it looks like all of their posts are like super thought out, but mine kind of seem random. And, you know, comparison really is a thief of joy. And I also think it's a thief of the creative process. So I'm just so happy that you said all of what you said, because I think in the like I said, in the world that we live in, you say that and people are like, oh well, you're not serious, or maybe you're lazy, or etc. And there's just the shame around that. But the truth of the matter is, a lot of people are learning the same exact things that you're learning, but are probably second guessing it, right? So that's why I think it's important to really call it out, because again, you know, the evidence is in the pudding. I don't even know if that's the right word, but like, if people were to check out something,
the taste is in the pudding, something
the taste
like
is
that.
in the pudding, yeah, something like that. So you know, if people check out your art and stuff, you obviously are, like you said, are prolific, and your stuff is really, really good. So I just think that there's so much value in what you're saying, and people who are listening to this are probably going to be able to breathe a little bit more. Creatives who are listening to this and like, oh, okay, I don't have to be like in the zone all the time, and my stuff doesn't have to be perfect.
If I can say anything, is that please, all creatives, anyone, just create. And again, I'm talking to myself because it's a constant reminder. This is just another point I want to bring up, but my relationship to my creativity also changes over time and changes with my popularity. So that like, even this word popularity, it's something to kind of grapple with. In some ways, we're all chasing it. We all want it. I never thought I would have more than 10,000 followers. I remember when I hit that, I was like, oh my God, I'm famous.
Right.
And now when it's at 100,000, I mean, it's amazing. I'm grateful, but it gives me a lot of anxiety because now that number goes up and it goes down. Yeah. And there were times where I had a lot more engagement, like a ton more. And maybe since Reels and things came, it's like I have 100,000, but maybe 1,000 people actually see what I do. And so I find that my motivation changes, unfortunately, because we're all affected by this. That when I think, oh, no one's really seeing it anyway. No one even knows if I don't post for a month, you know? And I start, again, I'm working to be seen. I'm working in this process and I'm not really being authentic to myself. And so that's why it's a constant check-in process. And that's why this commitment to doing the 100-day project every year is super important. I started mine this year back in August, and just in 10, 20 days of doing it, I felt so much more myself because the first few days I would post and like, what? Not barely anyone even saw it. And this isn't what I got. And usually I would actually stop posting. Like I actually would my motivation would go down. But because my commitment isn't to the viewership or who's seeing it, it's to myself, it keeps me going. And so again, just on this point of popularity, when I started drawing, I was more like amateurish, I guess you could say, and I would just draw whatever and post like more incomplete, imperfect things. And of course, now as I've become more professional and I've seen myself as this is my career, I up my expectations for myself, which is good. But anyone can see like the style is so much more refined, and I spend a lot more hours really digitalizing it and making it nice. But sometimes I do lose the heart of it, and sometimes that becomes a sense of perfectionism. So I start becoming too good for my own sake, where I'm not following my own process. Back in 2016, 17, I would just draw whatever with whatever pen was there, and I would just take a photo. I wouldn't filter it. It would just be easy, you know? And now it has to be perfect and this, and maybe I should do background music. And I'm finding myself creating excuses for not doing the quantity over quality thing. I'm doing the quality over quantity. I'm making amazing quality, but I'm taking so long because I second guess myself and I have to write the perfect description. And suddenly I'm exhausted by my own work instead of being inspired. And so many of us, especially creators and people on social media, are exhausted by the work that we do. And I just feel when I really connect to the source of creativity, creativity is like pure joy and innovation and curiosity, and it should be lifting us up. But because of the way and the structures and this sort of like confinement of social media, like I am a critic of Instagram. At the same time, I benefit from Instagram. It's again a relationship I have to grapple with. But I just see it's in the system that we're constantly comparing ourselves to others. We're constantly measuring ourselves and our worth through likes. And it's really hard to stop because it's very psychological.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think we just have to keep checking in and saying like, why am I doing this? And where is my measure of success? Because if I'm doing this just because I expect people to like it and I have this big following, then I'm not getting much from it. And again, a big measure is, how am I feeling after doing this work? Am I feeling drained and exhausted every time I post a caption and post art? Then that's saying something. Am I just dreading or the work on social media? Then that's saying something. And I think about those days when I would have to post every day and it would be unfinished and it would be just whatever. And I felt again like I was dialoguing with people, that even if it was half finished or not very good, there would be one person who would say something like, wow, I really needed this. And I cared about that one person. That I really miss that. And again, social media and Instagram of today, it doesn't really give that. That's not the focus. The focus is the amount of people and not the connection. And so this for me is just a really good reminder of why I'm doing it. It's for those little moments that I'm dialoguing with my audience. And this can just pivot also to when I started doing workshops, because that was a breath of fresh air. And even the art that I made kind of decreased as I spent more time doing workshops, because the minute I got on Zoom, saw people's faces, spoke to them, there was more humanness in that. I felt this amazing relief of, oh yeah, this is why I do this. These 20 people on Zoom give more sense of connection than 2,000-3,000 people liking something, which is much more impersonal than to actually sit with someone and teach them how to draw and exercise and then watch them really light up. I felt so much more alive from that. And even this podcast with you right now, it's just making me feel like this is so much better than posting and waiting for likes and this cycle. So again, for creatives and artists, we have to use the system. We really do. If I could get out of it, sometimes I think I actually would. But at this moment, we have to use the system. And if we can just try to stay true to ourselves as best as we can and find some way to really connect, if it's not on Instagram, if it's podcasts, if it's Zoom connections, if it's in-person meetups, we have to keep that alive. And so this turned into a rant a little bit about Instagram. But
no, I love it. I love it because I think if you could see my brain and my heart, that's kind of something I've been struggling with a little bit, because wanting to, I have a great following and I have a steady group of listeners, but wanting to engage more, wanting to make sure that this content is reaching the people that it will benefit from it, and then also trying to like figure out the algorithms for like Instagram, like you said, like you have followers, but like 10 people are seeing your posts out of the hundreds of people that follow you. And that can be very disheartening sometimes. And, you think like, does anybody care? Like, what is the point in me doing what I'm doing? And in a world where like, it's better to kind of create stuff that's more sensationalized and a little bit of drama, or, to be creating something that is a little bit more to the heart and emotions and talking about relationships and connections, sometimes I feel like, I don't want to blame Instagram, but it feels like that's not the content that's at the forefront of people's feeds. But I get what you're saying. It's about connecting and really focusing on the connection and the impact that you're making with the work that you're doing. But aside from all of that, I know we've been talking a lot about your intention and why you do what you do. For people who are interested in workshops or just kind of like wanting to learn more about your art or purchase your art, where can they find those offerings?
Yes, so definitely you can find me on Instagram, and my website is dearruxi.com, and I'm selling prints. And as we're entering the holiday season, I am finally going to really rile up my store more. It's been a bit quiet for the past year or so, but I have books and card decks and 2023 calendars I'm putting out soon. Hopefully when this podcast comes out, it's there. So if you want a calendar and stickers, so there is a lot I produced earlier this year that I am excited to get back into gear. This year I have been quiet online for anyone who has been following me until just a few months ago when I started posting again. Maybe this is the place to share this news, but I have been working on a book, so I've had valid reason to be quite quiet.
Awesome.
And that process, that's maybe a conversation for another podcast. And I think with that book coming to completion, and it'll come out sometime next year, you will definitely be hearing a lot more of me as I really put that out there. But until then, please do check out my website, my Instagram, and books, cards, calendars, prints, all that fun stuff. I also do workshops. This year, it's not been as much, but again, coming into the holidays, I plan to put out some. So check out my Instagram. I'll be posting there. And I really look forward to connecting. Anyone who's hearing this, shoot me a DM, send me a comment. I do my best to read everything and get back to you. So always happy to connect.
I love that. Is it okay if I ask what the book will be centered around?
Of course. I'm excited to share the title. It's so simple. It's called Draw Your Feelings.
Love it.
Draw Your Feelings, a guidebook to unlocking your creativity. So this is a guided journal, and it's based off the workshops. I did a ton in 2020 and 2021. And when I was producing these workshops, I turned them into a course. And at one point I was compiling it into a workbook, and I just thought, well, this kind of looks like a book. And with many other things, I was able to pitch it to a publisher, and I'm quite excited by what's happening and what's coming. And so, the book will be a guidebook for anyone who wants to learn how to draw their own feelings. And I'm excited. Hopefully it's the feeling that people get when they're taking my workshops. That's what I want to offer to others.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about the book. I tried to purchase the cards on your website, but I think they were sold out.
Sold out, yes.
Yeah.
I'm restocking them for the holidays, so please check back soon.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, well, this podcast is called A Word to the Wise. We've had such an amazing conversation. So much wisdom has been shared, obviously. But final words of wisdom to the listeners. It could be about what we've been talking about or something different that you just kind of keep in the back pocket as you go through life.
I would say, okay, I mean, what's in my heart is do the 100-day project. Any of my friends who know me get really tired by how often I say this, but I genuinely mean it. Even though there's some years I kind of struggle with it, and some years I love it. It's a consistent force in my life and my creative work. And it's a theme I always come back to. And really the 100-day project, if you don't want to do 100 days, do 20 days, do 10 days. But the idea is find something you're curious about and try to be as consistent as possible. And just that will unlock all of this that we're talking about, the quantity over quality, how to be prolific, the discipline, everything that wants to get us out of somehow what seems like a superficial creative process that the world is kind of pinholing us into, of just produce for viewership and produce for followers, that kind of thing that sort of sucks us dry. I find that the perfect alternative is do a 100-day project because it's so radical. girl. You're not doing it for money. You're not doing it for followers. You're just doing something fun, which is like, wow, how radical can that be? Use our time for something fun. But think about this idea that we define ourselves by what we consistently do. And try not to use that as a way to put pressure, but just to be curious that if I write poetry and it's really crappy poetry, I don't even know how to write poetry, but if I put pen to paper for even 50 days, what will happen inside of me? What will happen to me? And I will say amazing things. Really, like, this process doesn't go wrong. This creative process is a process. It's not magic. It's not a whiff of just inspiration that hits you. It's a process, which means that there's a way of doing it. There are, rules that work and don't work. And when you just sit down and you give 10, 20, 30 minutes consistently, results happen. It's like the scientific experiment, you have a hypothesis, you do something, and then there's results. And if you see creativity like that, it's not as intimidating.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I mean, just because of everything you just said, one final question. I'm curious, are there any new things aside from emotions you see yourself being curious about and wanting to explore for like another 100 days?
Oh, that is such a good question. So this 100-day project really is inspired by something called IFS, or internal family systems. So for anyone who is familiar with different psychological frameworks, basically it's a framework about the parts of ourselves. And there's a book I read recently by Richard Schwartz called No Bad Parts. And I've just been looking into this idea that, wow, we're made of multiple parts. And this idea that there's an inner critic in me and an inner guide. And there's a part of me that hates this thing and a part of me that loves this thing. And again, there are trained therapists who know this concept much better than me, but just a little bit that I read about has been so helpful personally, that whenever I feel a strong emotion or something comes up, I just think, what part of me is feeling that? Is that the 7-year-old that feels really insecure? Is that, the part that has walls built up? Is that the part of me that is really scared? Is that the part of me that gets angry but is ashamed to show that anger? I mean, there are unlimited parts to us. So I'm making this a little bit long because I'm very inspired by this idea of parts. Yeah. And one last thing I'm also very inspired by for many years now has been the Enneagram. So again, for those who are interested in personality types, this is a personality typing framework, which is super deep, very spiritual, also very nuanced and beautiful. And it's something I've been exploring for a while. And so if there's any Enneagram lovers out there listening to this, I am a fellow geek. And so anyway, these things, especially different psychological frameworks, personality types, I love to geek out about. So that's kind of where my curiosity leads me.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on the show. This has been absolutely wonderful. I'm going to be putting details to your social media and also your website in the show notes for the viewers to check out. But thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been an amazing, amazing conversation.
Thank you so much, Jummie. It's been such a pleasure being here.